Hi, welcome back to Everyday Race. Today I've decided to make one quick video to show you how to improve on 5 things on a Ford Ranger with one easy mod. Those 5 things are: A, how to improve acceleration; B, how to improve on braking; D, how to improve on durability; F, how to improve on fuel mileage; and T, and most important for me, how to improve on traction. And this one simple mod would be to upgrade your rear differential. Alright, so to be able to upgrade your rear differential, first you have to know exactly what you have. So first easy way to tell what is it that you have in your Ford Ranger, you have to look on the door tag, which is located on, you guessed it, the door. So you have to find the door tag and you have to find axle, and there's a number right under it. For example, this truck, it says 86. Now you can Google the code and find out exactly what you have. Basically the first number or letter means what rear differential you have. For example, 8 stands for a 7.5 inch open differential. F stands for 7.5 inch limited slip differential. Then we have 9 stands for 8.8 open differential, and R stands for 8.8 limited slip differential. Alright, now let's look at the second digit. Second digit means gear ratio. For example, 6 means you have a 373 gear ratio. 7 would mean you have a 4.10 differential, and so on and so forth. I recommend using Google. You can just type Ford Ranger axle code and it'll come up with a bunch of different codes. That way you can find out what gears you have. Alright, so second way to tell what is it that you have is you can look on the differential and look on the door, on the tag. For example, you can see this one says 7.5, which stands for a 7.5 inch rear differential, and you can sort of see 73, which means this differential has a 373 gear ratio. Third way to tell what is it that you have is by actually physically looking at it. So there are 2 differentials. There's a 7.5 inch differential, which has round sides on the cover. Now the second option is 8.8 differential. It has straight sides on the cover, just like this. See how they're straight? Alright. So now, since you know what is it that you have, now you can plan how to upgrade it to something that's going to suit your driving style and your truck. So first, let's cover acceleration. For that, I'm going to remove the rear differential cover. We're going to look right inside there. Alright, so this differential is an open diff 373 gear ratio. To improve acceleration, you have to change the gear ratio. This is the gear, and this is a pinion gear. Now, if I was going to improve acceleration on this truck, that's what this differential came out. I could go to 410 differential. So if you want to improve acceleration on your truck, you gotta increase the numerical number of the gear ratio. Now there are multiple ways of doing it. You can A, source the whole rear differential with correct gear ratio that suits your needs. 2, you can buy used gears at a salvage yard or somewhere online, or option number 3, you can buy new gears and have them installed. It's really up to you which way you want to go. So I've decided to just buy the whole complete rear differential with the gear ratio that I needed. Alright, so next, let's look at B, braking. Now, I don't have the drums, but there are usually 3 different options. A 9-inch drum brake setup, which mostly comes on the 7.5-inch rear ends, 4-cylinder trucks. It's a smaller drum brake available. So what I ended up doing is going with a 10-inch drum brakes, which is the second option, which comes on most 8.8 rear differentials and some of the 7.5-inch rear differentials. And then there's a third option. You can upgrade to disc brakes. Now, some of the late models, pre-2011 Ford Rangers came with the disc brakes. If you're lucky enough to find a differential that has that, or you can order parts for one, you will need a brake line, brake hoses, different. Alright, next let's talk about the B, braking. So if you're upgrading your rear end, you can upgrade your brakes while you're at it. Now you have multiple options. First, the most common rear brake setup on Ford Rangers is a 9-inch drum brakes. Now the way you can tell you have 9-inch drum brakes is the drums have fins on them and they measure 9 inches in diameter. I know, shocking. Now the next step up from that would be factory 10-inch drum brakes. They come on most 8.8 rear ends and some of the 7.5-inch rear ends. Now the difference would be obviously a bigger drum, bigger shoes. Very easy to upgrade. For example, I went with the 10-inch drum brakes on my truck just for simple reason because they're bigger and they came with my rear end, so it didn't require anything else. The e-brake cable's hooked up, and yeah, it's a good deal. So, but there's a third brake option. You can upgrade to disc brakes. Now, some of the pre-2011 Ford Rangers came with the disc brakes. You can also source parts from Ford Explorers, 95 to like 2001, I believe, or 94 and up Ford Mustangs. Now, for that, you will need a backing plate. You need caliper brackets, caliper, brake pads, and brake rotors. You will also need different e-brake cables and probably a proportioning valve, which sends a different ratio, different amount of brake fluid to the rear wheels because calipers have bigger pistons compared to the small wheel cylinders. Now, I didn't go that route for multiple reasons. I don't tow anything. I just, besides my bike, which is not that heavy, and most braking is done by the front. So if I'm going to upgrade my brakes, I'm going to concentrate on the front instead of the back. So I've upgraded to 10-inch drum brakes because it was simple. It came on my rear differential. I didn't need to modify anything else, and I'm sure improved the braking slightly, not by much. So it's really up to you. Disc brakes are easier to work on for some, but the reality is, I think drum brakes usually last 10-15 years. You don't need that much maintenance. Anyways, alright, next let's talk about D. That was the most important, well, one of the most important things why I upgraded my rear differential in the first place. Now, there was nothing wrong with this rear differential. It was fine. But I wanted a more reliable, more durable rear differential. So you have two options. Well, you have three options. Option number one is a 7.5-inch rear end, which is the least reliable one. The spider gears crack, break, and then your tires will lock up on the highway. It happened to me twice. So first thing I wanted to do is get rid of this. I do not recommend anybody having 7.5 inch rear end, even though I don't do any towing, I don't do anything crazy. I just have no faith in them, and that's why you can upgrade to 8.8 rear differential. From a 95 to 2011 Ford Ranger. They come with the bigger carrier, bigger gears, bigger spider gears, and they're a lot more reliable. So that's what I did with my truck. It's an 8.8. The third option is to get a rear differential out of a Ford Explorer. Now that rear differential is a little bit different. First, it has a 31 spline axles, unlike Ford Rangers that come with 28 spline axles, so the axles are actually stronger. Then it comes with the disc brakes for those who really want the disc brakes in the first place. And but there are a few differences on the outside. So let's go to the junkyard and see exactly what the differences are. Alright, so here we are at the junkyard. This is let's see. This would be a 99 Explorer. As you can see, it's got disc brakes. Alright, so the difference, as you can see, the leaf spring is under the rear axle, and the shock mounts are mounted both sideways. Sway bar is on a different spot, but it's got disc brakes. The heat cable's already been cut off, so all you have to do, you can transfer these parts onto your axle, or you can do this one. So it's an 8.8, just like Ranger, except with the that's what it looks like. There we go. The brake line going to brake hose. Easy peasy. There we go. Somebody already took the drive shaft. Alright, so here we got a Ranger. Let's find out what it's got. Okay. Axle R5 means 8.8 with a 355 gear ratio, and it's a limited slip. Now the Ranger, as you can see, has an axle under the leaf spring, and this one looks to be good. Well, never mind, it's rusty. It shouldn't have a square. See, it's got square sides, and pinion seal is leaking, so I might not take this one home. Let's see what we got inside. Ooh, console. Oh, and it's working. It's a good deal. Somebody's gonna get a good deal out of this truck. Alright, time to move back to the house. I did not go with the Ford Explorer rear differential because the things that the Ford Explorer has weren't really suited for my truck. The 31 spline stronger axles, I really don't need any more strength. I haven't seen many of those break in the first place. Disc brakes, I didn't feel like messing with the proportioning valve and all that. And most importantly, I like my e-brake. I gotta have it with the 5-speed manual, and I didn't know how good the disc brake was gonna work. And the drum brakes, e-brake works great. As you can see on my hill, it's working perfectly. So these were 3 options: 7.5 inch rear end, garbage; 8.8 inch rear end, great; or a Ford Explorer 8.8, which is just a tad bit stronger but requires more work. Alright, let's talk about the next thing, which would be F, fuel mileage. So the way you get better fuel mileage is to change the gear ratio exact opposite of what acceleration required. So if you got 373 gear ratio, you need to decrease the gear ratio. For example, 327 gear ratio, 308 gear ratio, or 273 gear ratio most of the time will get you a better gas mileage, and due to lower engine speed on highway speeds. But they will also decrease your acceleration and more wear and tear on your clutch if you have a 5-speed manual transmission. So this is really up to you. You can get different gear ratios for 7.5 inch rear end or 8.8 inch rear ends. I decided to stick with the 373 gear ratio. It's average all around gear ratio, and it gives me decent fuel mileage and decent acceleration. Last but not least, let's talk about the T, traction. This was a number 1 or 2 reasons why I upgraded my rear differential. I wanted to get more traction because there's not much weight on the back of the truck, and it's a 2-wheel drive truck, and a 1-wheel drive just wasn't doing it for me. And what I mean by a 1-wheel drive is open rear differential, the one that has no springs, no clutches. So the way this differential works is whenever your truck finds the slickest part on the road, for example some grass or some wet or snow, the differential will send all that power to the tire with the least amount of traction. It makes it a 1-wheel drive. And in a 4-wheel drive, it makes it a 2-wheel drive, because you only if you got 2 open differentials. So for that reason, the best thing to do is to upgrade to a limited slip differential, such as this one. It has the spring and it has the clutches. So the way it works is it sends power to both wheels. If one wheel breaks traction, the other wheel still gets power sent to it. Not all of it, but it's beautiful. So there are options for that. If you decided for some odd reason to keep your 7.5 inch rear end, you can get a 4-incher OEM limited slip carrier. For example, this carrier will bolt up in this differential and it will be limited slip. Now you can do the same thing if you decided to upgrade to 8.8 differential. You can get factory limited slip in it. Now there was a third option for 8.8, but it's really rare. I believe it's 2002 to 2008 Ford Ranger Level 2 FX4. It came with a Torsen rear differential. So it's a different style of limited slip. It works a little bit better than this setup, but it's really hard to find. So if you want more traction, you got to stay away from open slip. You got to stay away from open differential, whether you keep in the 7.5 inch or upgrading to 8.8 rear end. You got to go with the limited slip. Now you can buy the parts used as a carrier, such as this one, or you can buy complete rear end, and that's what I did. I went with the 373 gear ratio 8.8 limited slip differential. Provides more traction. It's more durable. It provides the same acceleration as the rear differential that was in there. Same fuel mileage, nothing changed, and pretty happy. It drives very good. So this should cover the whole video. If you enjoyed this video, hit a like button. If you didn't, hit a like button anyways. Alright, have a good day.